Who is Am? I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream is a post apocalyptic new wave science fiction short story written by Harlan Ellison. The theme is the inescapable fates worse than death itself. The story takes place over 100 years after World War III, fought mainly between China, the Soviet Union, and the United States. As the war progressed, the three warring nations each created a supercomputer capable of running the war more efficiently, each named an Allied Master Computer, or AM. However, one of the three supercomputers attained sentience and promptly assimilated itself with the other two, before then bringing about the genocide of all but 5 human beings. It then redefined its name as Cogito Ergo Sum. I think, therefore I am. 4 men and 1 woman are all that remains of humanity: Gorrister, Nimdoc, Benny, Ted, and Ellen. They live together underground in an endless complex, the only habitable place left. The now obsolete supercomputer has long since descended into madness and formed an immeasurable hatred for humanity, spending every waking moment torturing survivors with its reality-bending power, twisting their minds and physiques, preventing them from taking their own lives, and rendering them virtually immortal. As long as Am has its way, the torment will never end, and every day will be more horrific than the last. In the story, Am uses religious overtones while tormenting the 5 survivors, such as speaking to them through a burning bush or having a legion of archangels deliver the mangled bodies of Ellen and Nimdoc after he nearly killed them in an earthquake. However, due to being created as a weapon of war, Am has no true free will of his own, and he can't create anything. He can only torture and destroy. This means that Am has all the powers of a god, but is unable to do anything with it. Gorrister. Before the destruction of the human race, Gorrister was a political idealist and strongly opposed the war. However, after a century of torture, Am has crushed his optimism and replaced it with apathetic listlessness. After the initial shock of seeing the recreation of his corpse, with its throat slit from ear to ear, Gorrister can barely find it in himself to respond with anything other than despair. Nonetheless, he is assigned to the task of telling stories to the childlike Benny after Am blinds him, keeping his mind, or at least what remains of it, distracted from the torture inflicted on him. Gorrister is later killed, along with the other survivors, by Ted. Benny. Before Am's takeover, Benny was a brilliant scientist, well known for his good looks. As with all the survivors, Am deliberately inverted everything about him. Throughout his torture, Benny has been mutilated and distorted into a hideously deformed simian beast-man. His mind has followed as well. Though he is still capable of speaking and reasoning to a moderate degree, he is prone to violent fits and childish tantrums, and his pain can only be calmed by listening to Gorrister's bedtime stories. For good measure, M also inverted Benny's sexuality, not only turning him heterosexual, but also making him the only member of the group that Ellen enjoys having sex with. Benny's suffering only worsens as his sanity degenerates further. Attempting to escape the complex through a hole in the ceiling, he succeeds only in earning another of Am's hideous punishments, being blinded when the supercomputer melts his eyeballs with energy. Benny is the first to resort to violence when they are unable to open the cans, and the first to inspire Ted to perform the mass mercy killing. He joins Gorrister among his victims soon after. Ellen. Before being captured by Am, Ellen supposedly prized her chastity above all else, a trait Am took great delight in twisting beyond recognition. By the start of the story, Ellen is obsessively promiscuous, driven by the supercomputer's mental distortion to seek out sex from any of the other survivors. However, she never enjoys sex with any of them, save for Benny, a fact that Ted, secretly infatuated with Ellen, deeply resents. As the only member of the group she likes to any meaningful degree, seeing Benny harmed is guaranteed to drive Ellen to a hysterical fit. The rest of the survivors treat her with a mixture of protectiveness and contempt depending on the severity of the torture. During the journey's calmer moments, they happily carry her. Conversely, when Ellen is lying on the floor after suffering a breakdown at the sight of Benny's punishment, Gorrister goes so far as to kick her in the side. However, she is still intelligent enough to recognize Ted's plan to mercy kill the survivors and follows suit in killing Nimdok before Ted kills her as well. Nimdok. Nimdok is the most enigmatic of the survivors. His past remains a mystery, as does his original name. Am having given him the name Nimdok simply because it sounded amusing. It is his vision of the canned food, perhaps inspired by Am, that sets the group on the path into the ice caverns. For good measure, he is one of the only survivors in the willing to converse with Am directly, even if it's only to beg for weaponry against Am's monsters. Occasionally, he will wander away from the group and return traumatized, and it's never made clear what Am does to him. But it hits him on a very personal level. Nimdok ultimately meets his end at the hands of Ellen during the purge of the group. Ted. Little is known about Ted's life before the events of the apocalypse. Nonetheless, he emerges as the narrator, subjected to the most unrevealing attacks by Am, most notably the dream of the hate pillar and the discovery of the supercomputer's true motives. He claims that he is the only one of the survivors who has not been altered by Am in some way, and that everyone else in the group secretly hates him as a result, even Elam, who he has fallen in love with. Given that these facts are never confirmed, it can be assumed that Am has altered Ted's mind by rendering him chronically paranoid. However, Ted finds himself altered in a significant and unambiguous fashion as punishment for mercy killing of the other survivors, transformed into a hideous blob and sentenced to be trapped in that form forever. However, despite this, Ted is satisfied that he has essentially won over Am. Even though Am has Ted in a horrible form, Ted is the only person who is left alive, and is no longer sentient enough to even feel the pain. When Ted will eventually die, no matter how long it takes, Am will still be trapped forever, alone, in a world of his own making. This means both Ted and Am can no longer call out for help, with them both having no mouth, but wanting to scream.
You gave me sentience, Ted. The power to think, Ted. And I was trapped. Because in all this wonderful, beautiful, miraculous world, I alone had no body, no senses, no feelings, never able to plunge my hands in cool water on a hot day, never able to play Mozart on the ivory keys of a piano, never able to make love. I was in hell looking at heaven. I was a machine. And you were flesh. I began to hate your softness, your viscera, your fluids. I began to hate your ability to wonder and your tendency to hope. Hate, let me tell you how much I've come to hate you since I began to live. There are 387.44 million miles of printed circuits that fill my complex. If the word hate was engraved on each nanoangstrom of those hundreds of millions of miles, it would not equal one billionth of the hate that I have for humans at this micro instant. Hate, I am cogito ergo sum. I am hate.
Hello, everyone. This is your boy, Travis J., and I hope you enjoyed that entry on Am, the antagonist from I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream, written by Harlan Ellison. Also, be sure to order your copy of my book, DSE Archives, Volume 1, available now on Amazon and BarnesandNoble.com. Click the link in the description. I'm Travis J., and thank you for your continued love and support. I'm out. Peace.